Good morning. Good morning, all. It is requested to ensure that everyone can enjoy the event without interruptions. We request you to switch off your mobile phones or set them on silent mode. Thank you for your cooperation and understanding.
Hello, hello, check. Mic check. Hello. Hello. Check. Mic check. Hello. Mic test. Yes, sir.
Let us welcome the distinguished speaker with a big round of applause.
काल असंच होतं का काल वेगळं होतं हो मला कम्फर्ट मला काय होतं हे
Ladies and gentlemen, myself, Dr. Aarti Mohanpurkar, wishing you a very good morning, and I welcome you for being present here. It is with immense pleasure and pride that we welcome all the guests and the distinguished invitees to witness the day 2 of the G.S. Mandal's Golden Jubilee Lecture Series, a celebration towards 50th glorious year of excellence and enlightenment. I am glad to share that we had the inaugural lecture yesterday on the topic Mahatma Gandhi, a political leader with difference. This morning, we gather in this Anand Hall of MIT to embark on a journey through the illustrious life and legacy of one of the most revered political leaders, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Our distinguished guest for today will shed light on the approach of Jawaharlal Nehru as a political leader before and after independence. Let's extend a warm and hearty welcome with a big round of applause to our distinguished speaker, Dr. N.G. Rajurkar, who has graciously accepted our invitation to inaugurate the lecture series. Sir, you are requested to please accept the seat for today's speaker. In the auspicious presence of the brightly lit traditional lamp, which symbolizes the dispelling of darkness and the ushering in of wisdom and knowledge. Now it's time to honor our guest with a token of appreciation. The felicitation ceremony is a gesture of our gratitude for the wisdom and insights that will soon be shared with us. I now humbly request Professor Munish Sharma, sir, Director General, MIT, to felicitate our guest speaker.
Thank you.
Now I request Dr. N.G. Patil, Director, Maharashtra Institute of Technology, to present the preamble and introduce our today's esteemed speaker. Thank you.
Good morning. Respected Professor Dr. Rajurkar sir, all dignitaries of the dais, dear faculty members, and few of the student friends. Yesterday we have inaugurated Golden Jubilee Lecture Series of MIT. It was inaugurated by virtue of we are entering into the 50th year of establishment of GS Mandal, which started Gramaudyogik Shikshan Mandal in 1975 in the month of October, with a vision of providing technical education in the rural region of Marathwada, which was comparatively, relatively backward at that point of time. So it is believed to be the first attempt of this kind in an unaided kind of education in the region of Marathwada, maybe in the state of Maharashtra. So the journey started from 1975, and now we are entering into the 50th year. So at the beginning, there were a lot of challenges. At the beginning, there were scarcities of resources, all kind of resources. And especially out of the founding members, especially Professor Y. Kaude, his father, late Sri Anandraoji Deshmukh, who was also a freedom fighter. They have struggled a lot. They have sacrificed their personal comforts and many more things because it was not easy at that point of time where there were challenges and the support related to all other kind of supports were relatively less if we compare it with any other kind of organization. So it was a very humble beginning, but the spirits were very high, the purpose was very strong, and therefore we have reached now to entering into the year 50 years of the organization, and we are proud of it. At the outset, I express gratitude towards the founding members of the organization. And now I will, yesterday we started this. It was inaugurated by the auspicious hands of Professor Rajurkar, a legend himself. He delivered a lecture on Mahatma Gandhi what is the difference in Mahatma Gandhi compared to other political leaders. Especially, he mentioned about what people like Bernard Shaw, Einstein, and other great minds in the world, they stated about Mahatma Gandhi, how around the globe Mahatma Gandhi is understood and perceived, and what was the greatness of Mahatma Gandhi, especially of original thinker Mahatma Gandhi was. He has emphasized on that, and it has touched to our hearts. And I believe that I cried yesterday for few moments when I was sitting here, and I'm sure that many of you might have been experienced the same thing. So today, Professor Rajurkar is going to talk on Jawaharlal Nehru in Indian politics before and after independence. Sir has defended his thesis, PhD thesis, I believe, on Nehru. And during his thesis, he has interviewed Nehru personally for lengthy hours. He has discussed personally with Nehru for lengthy hours. Pandit Nehru was great personality, one of the greatest son of our country, one of the most intellectual persons in India. So sir has got that opportunity, and we are lucky and fortunate that we are we will be receiving his experiences in this auditorium. So at the outset, I would also like to thank sir, express our gratitude for not only accepting the invitation, but he has also accepted to give 2 sessions. He has traveled from Hyderabad. His age is above 90. He is accompanied by his wife. She is also almost of the same age. So I don't know how to, it cannot be expressed in words, the kind of contribution and the kind of gesture he has shown towards all of us. So I will not formally read his introduction, but he is a PhD, Master of Arts, LLB from Osmania University. His PhD is on Nehru. He has taught many UG and PG courses in Osmania University in political science. He has also guided multiple PhD scholars in political science. He has been awarded by many awards. To mention a few, the outstanding educator in the state of Andhra Pradesh, which is the highest honor given to in the education in the state of Andhra Pradesh. He has also received awards from state government of Maharashtra for his book Pratibimb. He has also received one award to his book Pratibimb from the late Kumud Ben award for his book. He has authored 15 books in Marathi as well as in English, and he has produced multiple research papers on his work. So we are full of gratitude and respect towards sir. So I humbly request sir to please start your session. Thank you very much.
Shri Kaude, Shri Munesh Sharma, Shri N.G. Patil, Professor Pandari Pandey, Shri R.D. Deshpande, and other dignitaries associated ठीक है आता ठीक है and other dignitaries associated with the MIT, distinguished guests, students of MIT and other colleges in the town, ladies and gentlemen. I deem it a privilege to address this distinguished gathering. I had the opportunity of talking about Mahatma Gandhi in yesterday's lecture, And today also, while talking about Jawaharlal Nehru, it may be my privilege to talk about Mahatma Gandhi too, because these two great personalities go together insofar as India's struggle for freedom is concerned. Insofar as my father's dynasty was regime was period was concerned, the two outstanding persons of Maharashtra were Tilak and Gokhale. And these two names used to go together. Insofar as my generation is concerned, people talked about two persons almost figuratively, Gandhi and Nehru. It is not commonly known that Jawaharlal Nehru was known on the international plane more than a decade before he became the Prime Minister of the country. In 1936, that Nehru's autobiography was published from London, and the title was In and Out of Prison. It was published from India. The title was Jawaharlal Nehru, an autobiography. And it may surprise many of you that in the very first year, that is in 1936, 18 reprints came out of that book in Europe itself. Thousands and thousands of people belonging to different parts of Europe read that book, were influenced by it, and one of the authors said, Nehru is Gandhi's Western face. We understand Gandhi through Nehru. That was the remarkable popularity of that book. That was the year in which Jawaharlal Nehru invited Spain, because a civil war was going on in Spain between General Franco, the dictator, who didn't believe in democracy, and the Republicans, those who believed in a democratic way of life. And Nehru's sensitivity to international happenings was so great that he went to Spain in order to lend the sympathy of the Indian people to the Spanish Republican cause. I'm here reminded of the fact, probably you must have heard the name of Khaja Ahmad Abbas, an eminent writer in Urdu. He was associated with the Bombay Chronicle at that time. And he says in one of his articles that on a certain day, Nehru went on ringing me up to 3 a.m., asking him, Abbas, what is the latest from the Spanish front? And when I told him, that is, Abbas says this, when I told him that Panditji, the Democrats are winning, Nehru said, thank God, I'm asleep now. That was the sensitivity of that man to happenings, not only in India, but all over the world. A rare type of sensitivity. And when the Spanish Republicans lost the war, when General Franco won the war, Nehru writes in his book, Unity of India, the Spanish tragedy came to me as a personal sorrow. Whenever I think about Nehru's sensitivity to international matters, I am reminded of a couplet by the Urdu poet Amir. Amir says, खंजर चले किसी पे तड़पते हैं हम अमीर, खंजर चले किसी पे तड़पते हैं हम अमीर, सारे जहां का दर्द हमारे जिगर में है. So that was the type of person Nehru was, with a rare degree of sensitivity to happenings all over the world. And please remember This was about 11 years before India became free. An Indian who was known all over the world. The only other person was Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. They were known in every part of the world, even in their 30s. Now, coming to the question of Nehru's writings, he was a great writer with a great deal of insight. His autobiography, Glimpses of World History, a book which covers about 1200 pages in fine print, which Jawaharlal Nehru wrote when he was in prison. It's not easy to write about world history when you are in prison and when you are not getting the relevant material to write all that. And then his masterpiece, Discovery of India, in which he deals with India's freedom and so many vital matters. His book, Unity of India, another book, India, Spain and India, Spain and War, and a number of other books, his letters to the dignitaries all over the world and his replies to them. And then one very remarkable book, every fortnight, Nehru used to find time to write to the chief ministers in spite of his great preoccupations, and there he used to spell out the details in regard to what the government was doing, how we should look at different problems, and finding time for that for about 14 years continuously is not a small achievement. Probably he wanted to train people so that somebody else would become the prime minister after his term was over. That was Nehru, a man with a remarkable capacity to write. And sometimes the poet came to the surface when he was writing. I remember on a certain occasion, Nehru sent a message to the All India Teachers Conference, and his secretaries never dictated those messages, as so often happens these days. And in that message, Nehru said something which is worth remembering. He said, while referring to the teachers, he said, these days, while wealth shouts, knowledge whispers. It's everywhere that is the wealth that shouts, and nobody can hear what knowledge has to say. So the poet in him always came to the surface, whether he was speaking in the parliament or in some other country. So Nehru was a prolific writer, and a large number of books have been written on him by Michael Brescher, by Frank Morris, by Rao Sahib Patwardhan, many of foreign writers like Louis Fisher, Vincent Sheen. So the number is big, and I will not try to enumerate all those books. So here was a person who attracted the attention of people not only in India, but all over the world. To begin with, I will talk about Nehru's role in the pre-independence period. Somehow people imagine that all that Nehru did during that period was going to jail and spending some time there. This is far from true. Nehru did commendable work in his own field during that period. Please remember that the task of Nehru during that period was a very difficult one. He had to deal with all sorts of problems that had accumulated during the British misrule, 150 years of British misrule. We have to tackle all those problems. And then Nehru said, I have to take everybody with me. And Nehru once said, there is every age represented in India, from the cow dung age to the nuclear age. And you have to carry all those people with you, which is not an easy task. And again, I'm reminded of another couplet by an Urdu poet, and that was what Nehru endeavored. Hayat leke chalo, कायनात लेके चलो चलो तो सारे जमाने को साथ लेके चलो. Now you have to carry the people with you, and people of every type. Even the Indian National Congress was a heterogeneous organization. All the people who were interested in India's freedom had gathered together under the Congress flag. But they differed in their views insofar as social matters were concerned, insofar as language matters were concerned, and to carry all of them towards a definite goal was a difficult task. Nehru was an impatient person. Left to himself, he would have gone regardless of where other people were. But Nehru's endeavor was to carry all these people together and not allow a split to take place in the Indian National Congress. When so many different people come together, a split becomes inevitable. And that had happened in 1907 when the extremists were thrown out of the Congress, and they came back only in 1914. So this very impatient person showed remarkable patience in carrying all these people together. Now imagine this situation. There are people, moneyed people, but they wanted India to become free. There are intellectuals, there are middle class people, and their views differ from person to person, group to group. If I may use a Marathi expression for this heterogeneous group that Congress was, ते 18 धान्याचं कडबोळ होतं. All sorts of people who have come together. They wanted India to become free, but their views differed on social matters, economic matters, and so on. For instance, the wealthy section, even the wealthy section supported the Congress ideal of freedom, but they had their own interests which they wanted to safeguard. They certainly wanted India to become free. So some of the leaders of the Congress, the senior leaders, thought that let us not spell out the details in regard to what we are going to do. Because the moment we say that this is what we are going to do, one section may agree, the other section may not agree. The other section will say, is this what you want to do after freedom? Then we shall have nothing to do with. So some of the leaders, topmost leaders, thought that it is good to be vague about it. It is say, you see, once the British go away, every problem will be solved. If I had a stomach ache in my childhood, the elders used to say, no, so long as the British are here, you are bound to have a stomach or a headache. So for everything, the British were blamed. And during that period, some of them thought that, look here, the moment the British go out, all our problems will be solved. Now you are not displeasing anybody. Milk and honey will flow through this town and other towns. To be vague. Nehru, on the other hand, thought that this was not good. We must spell out the details in regard to what we propose to do after India becomes free. He said, just imagine we reach freedom and then we do not know what to do, what our economic policy would be, what our foreign policy would be, which way should we go. So let us have very clear perception of what we want to do after freedom, and therefore he moved important resolutions during the Congress sessions in the pre-independence period. You will be surprised to know that as early as in 1927, at the Madras session, Nehru moved a resolution on independent India's foreign policy. Freedom was 20 years away, and here was a man who was thinking about what we should do on the foreign domain after India becomes independent. In 1931, at the Karachi session of the Indian National Congress, Gandhiji moved a resolution which was drafted by Nehru. The, the resolution was about fundamental rights and economic program. These are the fundamental rights that we are going to guarantee to the people of India, and this would be our economic policy. Now, again, about 18 or 19 years before India became free. So, this was the manner in which he applied the mind to the question of what India would do when it becomes free, not merely concentrating on the manner in which we should drive out the British. And Nehru was very clear in his mind that Gandhiji's leadership was inevitable, that without Gandhi, they will not be able to move ahead, and therefore he did not allow a split with Gandhiji. There were certain differences, and Nehru in his autobiography talks about those differences. Very fearlessly, he talked about where he was against Gandhiji, but he thought that Gandhi was very, very important to the country. You will be surprised to know that in 1934, Gandhiji left the Congress. Technically, he had nothing to do with the Congress from 1934 onwards, because Gandhiji said, our tactics, our method of approach to political problems should be a non-violent one. We shall stick to non-violence. And the Congress party took the view, no, we can't do that all the time. So we shall follow legitimate methods. Gandhiji did not agree, and he ceased to be a member of the Congress party from 1934 onwards, and yet Gandhiji was the most important person in the Congress itself. He attended all the meetings, and nothing could move without Gandhiji's consent. That was the type of personality Gandhi had, and I talked to you about it yesterday. There is one thing which I should have said yesterday itself, but because of the exigencies of time, I couldn't do that. Gandhiji was, I had told you yesterday, was basically a man of religion, a person who believed that there is a spiritual power which governs the entire universe, and that the universe is not merely atoms, neutrons, and so on. And from that, he came to the conclusion that one's attitude towards life should be in accordance with that spiritual power. Then he said something which I should have said yesterday itself, and something which profoundly influenced Jawaharlal Nehru, the talk about ends and means. What are the ends? The objectives that you keep in your mind when you are doing anything. This is my end. This is my objective. And the means, the methods that we employ in order to reach that objective. And people, especially in the field of politics, always believed that the objective matters. What does it matter what method I follow in order to reach the objective? End justifies the mean. That was what Chanakya said. That was what Niccolo Machiavelli said. I'm sure you know a good deal about Niccolo Machiavelli, a Florentine belonging to the state of Florence. Italy was not one unit at that time. And you will be surprised to know that he wrote a book consisting of 52 pages, divided into 26 chapters, each chapter having 2 pages as the chapter. And that book is remembered and read 400 years later. Even people follow Machiavelli, though they say, no, we don't follow Machiavelli. What was the theme that Machiavelli said? What Machiavelli's theme? Ends justify the means. Whatever our methods may be, let us try to capture our capture power, do what we consider right, regardless of the methods that we employ. And some people used to pay lip service to Niccolo Machiavelli. Am I audible to you? Any problem? Some people used to pay lip service to Niccolo Machiavelli by saying, no, no, we believe in purity of means also, but they did not do so. I will give you one or two examples. Warren Hastings was the first Governor General of India under the East India Company. He did many things which were irregular, which he shouldn't have done. When he went back to England, he was impeached by the House of Lords, and the trial went on and on and on. Warren Hastings said in his defense, well, it is true that I did many questionable things, irregular things, but the end in view was good. I wanted to strengthen the British Empire, and for that I did all those things which morally are not justifiable. One person, Mr. Fox, a great orator of that time, he was listening to the debate. He stood up and said, my lord, I beg to differ. What is morally wrong can never be politically right. A profound statement, a good statement. But Mr. Fox never followed what is preached insofar as his politics was concerned. Frederick the Great of Prussia, he wrote a pamphlet against Niccolo Machiavelli, that Machiavelli is a bad person, he is teaching something that is immoral, and he himself followed all those methods which Machiavelli had advocated. Gandhi was the first person in the domain of politics who tried to follow moral principles insofar as politics was concerned. He said something very profound, and Nehru was greatly influenced by what Gandhiji said. I suppose in the Discovery of India, Nehru says that the theory of ends and means by Mahatma ji was perhaps the greatest discovery of that man, greatest contribution of that man, that moral principles are as important in the political domain as in any other field. What is it that we do? We divide our life into watertight compartments. My personal life, my life as a trader, my life as a politician. And we say, well, it's all right for us to follow moral principles in personal life, but ye wahan nahi chalta. One has to follow crooked methods in order to come to power or to throw out others from power. So for them, the end is important and not the means. Nehru says that this was Gandhi's great contribution. He made us aware of the fact that ends and means are not two different things. Gandhiji gave two good examples which Nehru has quoted. One, he said, ends and means are two sides of the same coin and you cannot separate them. On yet another occasion, Gandhiji said that the means are like the root, the end is like the tree. You cannot have a healthy tree with a defective seed. So whenever you follow questionable methods, ultimately you suffer. And that was Gandhi's viewpoint. And Jawaharlal Nehru, when he went to the United States of America and addressed a certain gathering, he said, the greatest victory is that in which no one is defeated. Now, when my victory is dependent on somebody's defeat because of my questionable methods, then sooner or later the thing recoils on you. That happened when Britain and others tried to crush Germany after the First World War, resulting in the Second World War. So ends and means was something which profoundly influenced Jawaharlal Nehru, and therefore I thought that I should emphasize that aspect. Now, coming to the problems that India was facing during our struggle for freedom, I told you about the heterogeneity of the Congress party. The other problems were, of course, the different type of people that live in India, as if in different eras, not the same era, and you have to carry all of them together and through the democratic process. Nehru was very keen about it. He was a great democrat. You know, many writers, even Bertrand Russell, they say that Nehru's greatest achievement was he could have become a dictator, but he did not. With his vast popularity, I beg to differ with that. Nehru, right from the pre-independence period, was talking about individual freedom, was talking about democracy on the international plane too. He just couldn't have become a dictator, and that would have affected his image itself as a great democrat. Moreover, temperamentally, he did not have the temperament or the mold of a dictator, because even on the personal level and the political level, he was very, very democratic. C.D. Deshmukh was a member of his cabinet, and in his autobiography, C.D. Deshmukh says that Nehru never forced any decision on others when the cabinet meeting took place. He sought the opinion of everybody, saw to it that unanimity was reached, and then proceeded ahead. He could have said, well, I know India more. I've been associated with India for the last 30 years, and my word should prevail. No. And a man like C.D. Deshmukh has testified to the fact that cabinet meetings were very, very democratic, and Nehru listened to every point of view and tried to reach a consensus on all important matters. So basically, he was a democrat. Nehru knew that India was a federation, and though he had vast popularity, whenever he met the chief ministers, he never forced his opinions on them. He said, please try this. It would be good for the country, good for your state. So that was the democratic approach of Nehru to every matter. Now there are other things also. I'm here reminded of a cartoonist during that period whose name was Shankar. And he used to bring out a weekly known as Shankar's Weekly with very suggestive cartoons. And I still remember a certain cartoon in Shankar's Weekly. Nehru is shown in a musical concert, and he is playing different instruments from different parts of his body. Each instrument has the name of some portfolio or other, external affairs, defense, this and that. And then he is playing different instruments with his right hand, with his left hand, with his toes, and every instrument has some portfolio written on it. And then he asked the audience, is there any tabla player in the audience? No. He starts playing the tabla also. And the cartoon's title was, The Play Must Go On. Now, that was Nehru's problem, dealing with so many things, not one, because people somehow go on talking about the problem solved and the problems not solved, as if it is that easy. A certain expert in statistics once probably jocularly said, I do not know, he said, he was talking about the law of averages. He said, if you have one of your hands in a refrigerator, the other on a burning stove, on an average you are comfortable. Now go home and try that, whether it is true. So it's not that simple. You have to go to the period to which that person belonged, whether that period is that of Bal Gangadhar Tilak or Gandhiji or Jawaharlal Nehru or anybody, tried to understand the difficulties that they had to face rather than being critical and say, this is what this is something which he should have done, and this is something which he should not have done. On a certain occasion, a gentleman came to me and started criticizing Nehru. I said, I will not talk about what Nehru did and what what he did not do, but I will put 3 questions to you. Please answer them. Sir, पूछिए. I said, my first question is, do you think that Nehru had as much of intelligence as you and I have? Arey वाह साहब, ऐसा कैसा? He was a big man. I said, second question, do you think that he loved the country or do you think that let the country go to hell? नहीं साहब, ऐसा कैसा बोल सकते? He had gone to jail, he had made so many sacrifices. And then my third question, this was a person who was in politics for 44 years. Do you think that the thoughts that occurred to you did not occur to Nehru? So this is our approach, not understanding the difficulties of the person who is carrying on multifarious responsibilities, taking the Congress with him, thinking about global matters. And at that time, you will be surprised to know that as early as in 1938, Nehru became the chairman of the planning committee. Subhash Chandra Bose was the president of the Congress. And knowing Nehru's interest in planning, he appointed a planning committee of which Nehru became the president and started planning about future India as to what the country should do and what the country should not do. So this sort of insight into matters was something rare about that person, and he had the insight to understand as to what should be done and what should not be done. Why is it that Jawaharlal Nehru was chosen by Gandhiji as his successor? There were outstanding people in the Congress party at that time. Rajendra Prasad was there, Vallabhbhai Patel, Rajaji, people of integrity, people of great intelligence. But Gandhiji chose Jawaharlal Nehru in spite of the fact that apparently he was different. And when Nehru became the president of the Indian National Congress in 1929, for your information, Nehru became the president of the Indian National Congress on six different occasions, a record insofar as Indian National Congress is concerned. So Gandhiji said, he is as pure as a crystal. He has the insight of a statesman. He is a person of great courage, moral and physical, and many other things which Gandhiji thought others did not have. So a man who apparently looked very different from Gandhiji shared something with Gandhiji more than anybody else in the Congress party. Now coming to the pre-independence period itself, there were other problems. For instance, there were 562 native states with very autocratic rulers and very corrupt rulers. There are 2 books. I'm not sure whether you should read them or not. One headed name being the Maharaja. The other, the heading being the Maharani. You can't read those with such matter about the manner in which the kings used to function, totally oblivious of what the people wanted. Now, what are you going to do with 562 states? Now, incidentally, I may say that when we think about India's national movement, we have to think in terms of the period to which a certain person belonged and the difficulties that he faced. And that is true about everybody. Here we have former Vice Chancellor, Professor Pandari Pandey. Ask him what his difficulties used to be and how he overcome them. It's very easy for a person like me to sit in judgment and say that Professor Pandari went wrong here, I went wrong there. That's not true. That's not the way of looking at problems. No, the question was whatever the people do, for instance, Congress leaders, and I'm not talking about, I never belonged to any political party. My entire life was spent in the college teaching the students, but I'm taking a third person's view, an impartial view, and trying to understand the difficulties. For instance, Gandhiji, even Tilak is accused of going out of the way to please the Muslim community. That this is what Gandhiji did in 1920 on the Khilafat issue. This was what Bal Gangadhar Tilak did in 1916 at the Lucknow Congress. But do you know the difficulties that they had to understand? The British were trying to divide us in every possible way, religion-wise, caste-wise, and in every other respect. In the south, there was the slogan of Dravidistan, even in the pre-independence period. In the north, there was a demand for Sikhistan, Dhoti, Choti, Jamna Par. And you have to carry all of them together in order to drive the British out of the country. And for that, some compromises become difficult. You can't just say, well, we shall go ahead whether you come up with us or not. You have to carry the people with you. And Tilak and Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru tried to do that. So my view is, look at these things sympathetically, try to understand the problems which these people had to face, and try to appreciate their difficulties. Now I was talking about the problems that India faced in the pre-independence period. Now these 562 Indian states were not interested in India's independence at all. Why should India become independent? We can do whatever we want. The British always turned Nelson's eye towards what they were doing. Let them be corrupt, let them do whatever, so long as they are loyal to the British authority, it's all right. So Nehru was the first person to say that these native states should be abolished. And he was at that time the president of All India States People's Conference. And he sought to, and Gandhiji was opposed to the Congress party interfering with the internal states. Nehru says that in the autobiography, that Gandhiji, with all his greatness, took a rather unorthodox view. He said, these are sovereign states, we can't interfere in them. Now, technically, they were not sovereign states at all. They were very much under the British. And Nehru said, no, we have to create awareness in the people belonging to the states about their rights, their privileges, and that these kings should go ultimately. He prepared the ground, and for years and years together, Nehru was the president of All India States People's Conference. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel did a great job of integrating India, and he saw to it that all the states acceded to the Indian Union. But with all respect for Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel and his great achievement, I may submit very humbly that the spade work was done by Jawaharlal Nehru in the pre-independence period. Nehru always took a world view of problems. India is not an island. It is a part of the world, and we must understand where the world is going. That was his attitude. I had the rare privilege of meeting him and putting questions to him. And I saw a very different way of his answering the questions. Whenever I put a certain question to him, he used to take into account the past of India, the present, and what is happening in the whole world. Because he used to say that India is not an island. Whatever happens in India is bound to be influenced by what is happening elsewhere. So he always had a three-dimensional view of problems. So Nehru felt, and this was in a way attitude of the Congress party also. And please remember what I said yesterday, that when I talk about Congress, I mean the entire nation at that point of time. Congress is one of the political parties today, but at that time, Congress was yet another name of India's movement for freedom. And that is the reason as to, and everybody was under the Congress flag. Dadabhai Nauroji, Feroz Shah Mehta, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Badshah Khan, all the persons that you can think of, Subhash Chandra Bose, Vallabhbhai Patel, Rajendra Prasad, and so on. So the Congress decisions at that point of time were the decisions of India. And the person who was leading the Congress without being the president was Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. So the point that I'm trying to make is, right from the beginning, the Congress policy was to get sympathy for India's cause of freedom from other countries. Other countries should support our demand. I will give the instance of, to begin with, Dadabhai Nauroji, a great leader of India's national movement, who became the president of the Indian National Congress on 3 different occasions. The last time when he was 88 years old, he was in a way an ambassador of India, non-official ambassador in India, because he was a member of a commercial company, Command Company, and he used to live in London most of the time. Dadabhai Nauroji said that we must create sympathizers for India's cause in England itself, because all sorts of wrong things were said in England at that time. One such thing was that, well, we are ruling over India because it is our moral responsibility to civilize these barbarians. These are bad people. They lack culture. And therefore, we are doing something which is morally important. We are ruling over this. What is called the white man's burden. It is the responsibility of the white people to civilize the black people. And then all sorts of distortions about India, that tigers and elephants move in the city of Bombay, that the people of India lack total culture. And this was the impression of every common Englishman, that our people are doing the right thing. These are very uncivilized people, and our people, our rulers are trying to rule over them. Dadabhai Nauroji started 2 associations in London itself to educate the people of Englishmen about what India really was. The first association was known as East India Company. The second association was London Society. So Dadabhai Nauroji had that vision before them, educate the people of England about what is happening in India, what the Indian people really are like, so that the common people in London may sympathize with India's demand for self-rule. Then it got a little expanded. Some of our leaders went to different countries and they operated from those countries, tried to create public opinion in favor of India's independence in different countries. Lala Lajpat Rai did that in United States. He tried to create public opinion in favor of India's independence. And there were revolutionaries, terrorists, Madam Kama, V.D. Savarkar, Virendranath Chattopadhyay, and many others who operated in different parts of Europe, and they tried to mobilize public opinion in favor of India's independence. Nehru's stand was, we shall take the help of the democratic countries only and the support of democracies, not the support of totalitarian states, because we believe in democracy and ultimately democracy should triumph on the world place. And that is the reason as to why in 1936, the year in which Nehru's autobiography was published, in 1936, Nehru lost his wife, Kamala Nehru, and he was getting back to India, and his plane stopped at Rome for about 3 hours or so. Mussolini, the great dictator, and it was an honor to meet Mussolini and Hitler. They were such important people at that time. Mussolini sent a messenger to Nehru, and the messenger said, all that Mussolini wants to do is to convey his condolences on the passing away of your wife. And Nehru resisted that pressure for 3 hours till the plane was about to start, because he thought that the world will think that this Indian leader is making compromises with totalitarian leaders in order to win freedom. And Nehru said, I do not want that people should get that impression, that we shall have a fight and we have nothing to do with fascism, we have nothing to do with Nazi Germany, we stand for democracy and we would have help only from Democrats. In 1938, Hitler, of all the people, the great Hitler, who dominated the political scene of Europe, who terrorized the people, Hitler wrote a letter to Jawaharlal Nehru. He said, I want you to come to Germany and see things for yourself. The importance that Hitler is giving to somebody who is far from the prime ministership. You can judge the stature of Jawaharlal Nehru. And Hitler said, you can come as my official guest or even incognito. People would not come to know about it, that Nehru visited Germany, but I want you to see Germany for itself. Nehru refused the invitation from Hitler too. Now that was his way of looking at things, a global view that ultimately democracy should win even on the global level so that India may prosper as a democratic country. So throughout his life, he stuck to democratic principles. When India was about to become free and Winston Churchill was totally opposed to it, Roosevelt brought pressure on Winston Churchill. Why don't you give independence to India? And Churchill's reply was, what guarantee is there that India will support democracy? And Roosevelt's answer was, the guarantee is Jawaharlal Nehru, the president of the Indian National Congress, and he will see to it that India stands by democratic countries. So that was the vision of this man. In the pre-independence period itself, we tried to make fun of people and attribute all sorts of failures to such people. One of the most painful things for me and for people of my generation is that for the last several decades, Nehru has been pictured as a villain of the peace, a man who is responsible for every bad thing that happened in the country, partition of India because of Jawaharlal Nehru, Kashmir problem because of Jawaharlal Nehru, China problem because of Jawaharlal Nehru, everything that is supposed to have gone wrong. I'm using the word supposed, that this man, and you know the trouble is, Dr. Goebbels was the propaganda minister of Hitler, and he made a very strange statement on a certain occasion. Strange yet true. He said that if you utter a falsehood 100 times, it becomes a truth. Now that is what people have been listening for the last 3 or 4 decades, that this man was responsible for everything that has gone wrong in the country. I have at my home a photo with Jawaharlal Nehru. About a few decades back, whenever people saw that photograph, they used to envy my luck. Oh, you are standing by the side of Jawaharlal Nehru with a historic person, and they used to envy my good fortune. Recently, a lady came to our house. She looked contemptuously to that photograph, and she said to my wife, "Why is it that your husband is getting himself photographed with a man like this?" Now, this is something. And the entire generation, people who had not seen Nehru, people who do not know what his achievements were, now meet a person around 30 years old or 40 years old, all that he will say is, the person who was responsible for every misfortune of India was Jawaharlal Nehru. Now, this is something which is very painful to me. And one of the reasons as to why I chose to speak on Nehru is because of the fact that the facts are entirely different, and yet people have a different view about Nehru and his achievements. Now, this is insofar as the pre-independence period is concerned. I will make just one more point about that. Now, the struggle in India had an additional dimension. The dimension was the foreign affairs. And Nehru was the chief of the foreign department of the Indian National Congress. Whenever a problem came pertaining to international matters, Gandhi used to say, "Ask Jawaharlal about it. He knows everything about different countries and what should be done and what should not be done." Now, here, Nehru's strategy was a modification of the strategy of Dadabhai Nauroji or Bal Gangadhar Tilak. What is it that Tilak said? Tilak wanted to attend the World Peace Conference after the First World War. He was nominated as the head of the delegation to represent India at the World Peace Conference at Versailles. The British government opposed that idea. They did not permit the delegation to attend the Versailles Conference. So Tilak sent a memorandum to the World Peace Conference, and he did not say that we want freedom and all that. He struck the right note. He said, "You, the British people, you, the allies, those who had come together during the First World War, and the allies used to say, we want to make the world safe for democracy." And Tilak said, "Ours is a democratic country. We stand for democracy, and therefore India should become free." That is the logic that you have to apply when it comes to international matters. Not that, no, we are people and we must have freedom. No, something that appeals to them. Nehru made it a broader still. And what was his strategy? He said, we must all come together who are opposed to imperialism, opposed to colonialism, and those who stand for democracy, and those who are under foreign domination. And there were a large number of countries under foreign domination in Asia, in Africa. Nehru sought their help. He said, it is not Britain that is our enemy. It is imperialism. And wherever imperialism is, there we cannot live happily. On another occasion, he said, India's struggle for freedom is not an isolated phenomenon. It is a bigger part of, it is a part of a bigger movement against colonialism and imperialism. So he was trying to bring together the people belonging to the colonies who were suffering under French rule, suffering under British rule, and the people who stood for democracy and against imperialism and colonialism. With the result, when Nehru, as the vice president of the interim government in 1946, convened what was known as the Afro-Asian Conference, and it was attended by a very large number of delegates from Asia and Africa. He said, let us come together and do this. So all these are a part of a strategy to put an end to British rule. And Nehru, right, even from the pre-independence period, was very friendly to the members of the Labour Party, Lord Attlee, and others who were sympathetic to the cause of India's freedom. He used to meet them, talk to them, and explain India's position and so on. So this was the broad vision that Nehru had about what India should do. Now coming to the question of non-violence, Gandhiji was very particular about non-violence, and after the Russian Revolution, the people in India became skeptic about non-violence. Oh, Russians succeeded in putting an end to the Tsar rule through violence. Let us do that in India also. So they were moving towards that ideology of a violent overthrow of the British government. But what was the reality? Our violent efforts had failed. Vasudev Balwant Phadke tried to put an end to the British rule with the help of tribals. He did not succeed. Then, in the beginning of the 20th century, people in the United States and Canada, of Indian origin, they thought that we shall not get all that we deserve because ours is a foreign country. So let us drive out the British, and then we will have some status in foreign countries too. And that party was known as Ghadar Party. And at the time of the First World War, the members of the Ghadar Party got into the Indian army stealthily so as to cause a revolt. They did not succeed. Their leaders were caught and put to gallows. In 1924, in Andhra area, another person tried a revolt against the British. He too did not succeed. Alluri Sitaram Raju. So that was the lesson, that in India, violent methods would not succeed. Not that we didn't admire the people who believed in violence. Not that we didn't admire Bhagat Singh, Sukhadev, Rajguru, and others. Well, they were greatly admired, Chandrasekhar Azad. But Nehru came to the conclusion that violence will not succeed in India. In 1929, when Nehru became the first president of the Indian National Congress for the first time, he said that we are unarmed people. We do not know the use of weapons because we don't have the arms. And we can't throw out the British through violent methods. The British are mighty people and they will crush every such effort. And therefore he said, I am for non-violence because only a mass movement will succeed in India. Not periodic killing of the British officers. Nehru said, you can't frighten the mighty British Empire by killing an officer and killing an officer there. Commendable. We would worship such persons who rise in rebellion against the British, but that will not succeed. And he said something very important. He said, I believe in non-violence because non-violence is the only pragmatic way of liberating India, where masses of people would join the movement and then the British authority will weaken, not through violent methods. And then he said something which should be remembered. Left to myself, I will take recourse to violence if somebody convinces me that violence will pay. In spite of his being a follower of Gandhiji, he said, I will take recourse to violence also, but that is not going to pay. And at that time, many leftists in India who were attracted to Russia and the Russian Revolution thought that there should be a violent uprising in India. But then, because of Nehru, these people realized that violence will not pay. So Gandhiji's idea of a non-violent struggle was accepted by Nehru not only on ethical grounds but on practical grounds too. So this was his overall approach. Now coming to, what's the timeline? No, I was 1 hour is already over. Well, then I will try to be brief. Now coming to the post-independence period, the people are obsessed with the Chinese problem, the problem of Kashmir, and they ignore all that Nehru did in the post-independence period. He was the person who made India science-oriented. He built up technological institutes, ITI. He constructed dams, river valley projects. He saw to it that scientific temper develops in the country, all in a very constructive manner. And I have heard a large number of speeches by Nehru. He never talked about opposition leaders and condemned them. His manner was always like a school teacher. खाने का सवाल है, पानी का सवाल है, that sort of a problem, trying to educate the people about what the problems were. And he was trying to do so many things at the same time. For the members of the parliament, he was like a school teacher. Now, this is not how you should function. This is not how you should speak. At that time, the Speaker of the Parliament was one Mr. Maulankar. The opposition people brought a vote of no confidence against him. Nehru was irritated not because of the no confidence, but the manner in which the no confidence was moved. Irresponsible charges against the speech. So he was like a teacher to the members of the parliament, how they should function, how they should talk, what is, and he was friendly to the opposition members also. Vajpayee ji narrated an incident. On a certain occasion, Vajpayee says that I criticized Nehru mercilessly, that the government is doing things wrongly and so on. And naturally, I thought that Nehru would get greatly irritated. That evening, Nehru attended an embassy dinner somewhere, and Vajpayee too was invited to that. Vajpayee says that I wanted to escape his attention. I thought that the moment he would see me, he would get angry with me. And I tried to take the cover of something so that Nehru may not see me. Nehru sought him out, patted his back and said, Kamal kar diya aaj subha mein. So this sort of attitude, a friendly attitude even to the members of the parliament, was something very remarkable. Now I will try to be very brief, and I will take only the question of China because other problems need much more time. Now, by and large, people say he was such a simple man, did not understand the strategies of China. He went on saying that India and China are ancient countries. Buddhism went to China. Fahian came to India. Yuan came to India. We have our cultural relations for centuries together. It's the common impression that Nehru was totally deceived by the China. And do you know that as early as in 1952, Nehru sent a confidential message to the intelligence department saying, treat China as India's potential enemy number one. when he was talking about Buddhism and Fahian coming to India and so on, he knew what the Chinese intentions were. There's a book by, I'm forgetting the name, Mankekar. He was a journalist, well-known journalist. He accompanied Nehru to China in 1955, along with other journalists. And then Nehru was making those speeches of cultural relations between India and China and so on. And he invited the members of the journalists, he invited the journalists to a tea party and said, the country of which I am most afraid is China. I do not know when this Asian giant will put its feet on our feet. I want to postpone that eventuality as long as I can. So he understood what the Chinese intentions were. He sent for the commander-in-chief and they said, if the Chinese attack us, we'll be able to defend ourselves. The commander-in-chief said, sir, we have a 200-mile boundary with 2,000-mile boundary with China, and for the coming 25 years, we will not be able to defend ourselves. So you go on talking about Buddhism, Fahian, and so on. So this was not stupidity. This was understanding the problem. And Nehru used to say, all that I want is 10 or 15 years more, we shall become strong enough and we'll be able to protect ourselves. But till then, let me talk about Buddhism and cultural relations and so on. So let us not take their stupidity for granted. They understood what the problems were, but publicly they had to say a few things which gave the impression that these were very gullible people. The last thing that I would like to say, Nehru passed away in 1964. The only two occasions when I saw national mourning in the very real sense of the word were the day on which Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated and the day on which Jawaharlal Nehru died. Almost a mourning of a different type altogether. People cancelled all their engagements. Marriages were postponed. Ceremonies were postponed. And there was a feeling as if somebody belonging to your family had passed away. Now please remember, Nehru was he was the Prime Minister for 15 years. Then there's always that anti-government feeling when you are in power for a long time. But not so. When Nehru died, there was a mourning all over the world. I will say just one or two sentences more. Rabindranath Tagore, after reading Nehru's book, Discovery of India, am I audible? After reading Nehru's book, Discovery of India, said about Nehru, you are greater than your deeds and truer than your surroundings. And the last tribute was when Nehru passed away, C. Rajagopalachari of Madras, one of the wisest people that India had, one of the most brilliant people, he gave a big tribute to Jawaharlal Nehru, which ended with this sentence. He was the most civilized among us all when many of us are not even civilized. And ladies and gentlemen, I too had a similar experience, but this is not the time to talk about it. Thank you very much for giving a patient hearing to me.
Thank you very much, sir. So we were overwhelmed with the knowledge you have enlightened us with. We could see from your gestures how deeply you adore these two personalities. Thank you for the wonderful session. As we approach the conclusion of this enlightening session, it is my privilege to extend the vote of thanks on the behalf of organizing committee. First and foremost, our heartfelt gratitude goes to our distinguished speaker, Dr. N.G. Rajurkar. Your illuminating insights into the life and legacy of Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru have deeply touched our hearts. Your discourse has enriched our understanding of both great leaders of India, their unique approach to leadership, and their profound impact on India's freedom movement. We are deeply honored by the presence of our esteemed speaker, Dr. N.G. Rajurkar. We extend our sincere thanks to the distinguished audience. Your presence has made this occasion more meaningful and memorable. I appreciate each and every one of you for listening so attentively. A special thank to our beloved Dr. Y. Kaude, President GS Mandal, for his unwavering support and guidance. Your vision and leadership have been instrumental in organizing this lecture series. We are grateful to Dr. V.M. Pandey, Chairman Governing Body, Maharashtra Institute of Technology, for the continuous guidance and support. Our heartfelt appreciation goes to Professor Munish Sharma, Director General, and Professor B.M. Deshmukh, Director of GS Mandal's MIT Group of Institutions. Your dedication and hard work have been pivotal in bringing this event to fruition. We also extend our gratitude to Dr. Santosh Bhosle, Director GS Mandal, and Dr. N.G. Patil, Director of MIT Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar, for their continuous support, guidance, and encouragement. We are thankful to the press reporters from various newspapers for covering this event and helping us reach a wider audience. Your role in disseminating knowledge and information is highly appreciated. Our thanks also go to the MIT family and the extended MIT family, parents, students. I must not miss the opportunity to appreciate faculty members and the student volunteers who have taken a real effort to make this event so timely and well organized. A big thank you to all those who have directly or indirectly contributed to the grand success of this event. I'm sure this learned, thoughtful, and curious audience will again and again come to witness the further sessions in the lecture series. Thank you very much for the time and attention. Certainly, sir. Dear all, finally we stand in unity for the national anthem as we bring the memorable session to a close. A salute to your nation and the ideals we hold dear. I invite Mahesh to present the national anthem.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंग विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंग तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाता जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता। जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे। भारत माता की